Hello everyone, welcome to the Analyst. In today's video, we are going to discuss 5 important topics from the perspective of the UPSC examination. First and foremost, we will study about the amendment to the preamble, followed by the special category status which is being sought by various states. Then from your science and technology section, we are going to study about high altitude pseudo satellites. And then, as our External Affairs Minister participated in the Indian Ocean Conference, we will have a quick detail about it. Towards the end of the video, we are going to study about a military exercise called as SADA TANSEEQ. The handout for the same will be available in the description of the video. So let's begin. Now, amendment to the preamble has been in the news. The reason being that the Supreme Court recently inquired that whether preamble could have been amended in the year 1976 without changing its date of adoption. Now this forms an important component of your syllabus GS2 paper under the theme of evolution of Indian Constitution. Now before we dwell into the debate regarding the amendment to the preamble, let's first read about what is preamble. Now according to the eminent political jurist M.A. Palkhiwala, the preamble constitutes the identity card of the Constitution. One may wonder why so. So let's look at the preamble. The preamble describes the nature of Indian state, such as India being a sovereign country, which implies that we are independent and we do not serve as a dominion to any other country. Also, we are socialist. In India, we follow a democratic form of socialism where we have a mixed economy with the existence of both public as well as private sector, both of which aims to curb poverty and inequality in our country. Also, India is a secular country, which is reflected from the Articles 25 to Article 28, which provide various freedoms of religion to its citizens. Also, India is a democratic nation, which means that we elect our representatives and our lawmakers through the process of general election. One such election is round the corner and will take place in this year. Also, India is a republic, which means we have an elected head of state, that is president, who is indirectly elected by the people through their representatives. Also, the preamble describes the objective of the Constitution, which implies that the Constitution shall ensure justice, liberty, equality and fraternity to its citizens. At the same time, the preamble also provides for its date of adoption, which is 26th of November 1949. And it clearly specifies the authority of the Constitution by stating that the Constitution derives its power from the people who have adopted the Constitution, the people being me and you. So, what are the important judgments or debates regarding the amendment to the Constitution? Well, it all started from Berubari Union case of 1960, in which the Supreme Court held that even though the preamble forms the key to the mind of maker to the Constitution, but it does not form part of the Constitution. But in the landmark judgment of Keshwanand Bharti case 1973, in which the largest constitutional bench of 13 judges was constituted, the Supreme Court rejected its earlier opinion and held that preamble is indeed an integral part of the Constitution. The argument given was that when the preamble was put forward in the Constituent Assembly for its adoption, the first President of Constituent Assembly, Rajendra Prasad, said that the question here is whether preamble should be part of the constitution or not. And there it was passed with unanimous votes. The Supreme Court held that indeed preamble is an integral part of the constitution and thus it can be amended. But at the same time, it also laid down the basic structure doctrine where it clearly stated that the fundamental character of the preamble cannot be altered. Thus, our preamble has been amended only once so far in the year of 1976 by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Now, before we go and see what were the changes made by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, we need to keep in our mind two important things. First is that preamble neither act as a source of power nor as a prohibition on the power of legislature. At the same time, preamble is non-justiciable. What does it imply? It means that the provisions of the preamble are not enforceable in the court, which means that tomorrow you cannot approach the court stating that the objectives of the preamble has not been fulfilled. With this information in our mind, let's now try to solve a prelims question which appeared in the year 2020. What does the question say? The question asks that the preamble to the Constitution of India is part of the constitution, yes, under Keshavan Bharti case, but it has no legal effect because it is non-justiciable. So the option A is correct. Now let's see what were the changes which were introduced to the preamble by the significant act of 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Well, on your left is the original preamble and towards your right is the amended preamble. In the original preamble, if you closely observe, the words such as socialist and secular are absent. These words, socialist and secular, were added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. Also, under the fraternity theme, if you see it in the original constitution, it only stated unity of the nation. This was further transformed to unity and integrity of the nation by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. With these changes, let's try to solve another question of the prelims 2021. The question states that what was the exact constitutional status of India on 26th of January 1950? Well, the preamble and the constitution was adopted by the Constituent Assembly on 26th of November 1949. But it came in force on 26th of January 1950. The date 26th of January was chosen because on this date, in the year 1930, the Purna Swaraj movement was launched by INC as the part of the larger civil disobedience movement. So, we already know that there are several changes such as socialist and secular which has been made to the preamble in the later years. So, can we just remove the options which contain these words? Because obviously they were not present in the original constitution. At the same time, we have already discussed that the preamble describes the nature of the Indian state as sovereign, democratic and republic. Thus, option B is the correct answer. Now let's see what are the debates regarding the two added words of secular and socialist. Well, there are several political theorists who states that even though these words were added by 1976 amendment, they were present and imbibed in the various provisions of the constitution. For example, India was a secular country from its emancipation. Why? Because the constitution has not adopted any official religion for the constitution or for our country. At the same time, articles such as Article 14, which provides for equality before law, and equal protection of law. Article 15, which prohibits the state to discriminate against any citizen on the basis of religion. And Article 25, which provides for freedom of conscience and the freedom to practice, profess and propagate the religion of your choice. Thus, India was a secular country and is a secular country even without the changes introduced by the 1976 amendment. The similar case is with the word socialist. Even though the word socialist has been a later interpolation, the Indian constitution was socialist in its original character as well. For example, the directive principle of state policy under Article 38 directs the government to minimize inequality in income, status and opportunities. Also, Article 39 lays down various guidelines for the state to follow which have socialist character. For example, it provides the right to adequate means of livelihood. Does our government is trying to achieve that? Yes. Under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, the government is trying to provide cheap and affordable houses for the poor section of the society. Also, it directs the state to prevent the concentration of wealth. For example, in our country, we have progressive taxation, where your tax increases as your income increases. Also, it directs the state to provide opportunities for the healthy development of child. Also, our government has taken various initiatives in this regard. For example, we have Samagra Shiksha, and for their nutrition, we have midday meal scheme. Correct? At the same time, there is a new debate which is arising, and that's why this news has been featured so profoundly. The debate is that various lawyers and eminent jurists are asking and has signed a petition in the court to exclude the changes which were introduced in the year 1976 and providing the court to revert back to its original character as on 26th of November 1949. Now, in the context of this debate, Supreme Court raised an important question yesterday, where it asked that whether the changes which were made in the year 1976 in the preamble, was it possible without changing its date of adoption? Because it gives a sense of falsification among the larger masses who think that the present nature of our preamble is actually its true and original character. So we have covered the original preamble. We have also seen the changes made to it. We have also seen various judgments revolving around this debate. Now, keeping this in mind, we move forward to our next news, which is special category status. Now, various states such as Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Bihar have been demanding the special category status over years. This forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the theme of federalism and center and state relations. So first, let's inquire about what is a special category status. Special category status is a special scheme which has been devised by the central government in the year 1969 to assist states who are facing geographical and socio-economic disadvantages. Under this, the central government provides 90% of the funds under centrally sponsored schemes. To understand this, let's take an example of Gram Sadak Yojana. Now, Gram Sadak Yojana is a centrally sponsored scheme under which the government is trying to build road and infrastructure to connect rural areas. Let's say that in one particular state, there is a road built of 1 kilometer. And the cost to build that road is 100 rupees. Now, because it is a centrally sponsored scheme, for a normal state, the share of the central government will be rupees 60. But if the state falls under the special category status, then the share of the central government will be 90 rupees. Also, if there is any unspent money under the SCS which is lying in consolidated fund of state, then it does not lapse and is carried forward to the next fiscal year. Also, under SCS, various benefits are provided to the state, such as benefits of debt swapping and debt relief schemes. Also, there is huge concessions in taxes which are provided to these states. Let's take an example of a company called as Pepsi. Let's say Pepsi wants to build a company in a special category status state. Now, the corporate tax for Pepsi in this state will be much lower. Thus, it will act as a huge attraction to the investments in the form of foreign direct investments as well as foreign portfolio investments. Also, we will have a quick overlook about the evolution of the special category status. So, the special category status was devised on the recommendation of 5th Finance Commission or Tyagi Commission in the year 1969. Firstly, this status was accorded to Jammu and Kashmir, Assam and Nagaland. Currently, by the year of 2023, there are 11 such states who have been provided with such status. Which are those states? Let's have a look at that. First is your Himachal Pradesh, then there is your Uttarakhand. Now just keep on noticing that these are hilly regions. We'll come to this later. Then there is Sikkim, then Arunachal Pradesh. Also there are certain border states as well, such as Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, also Assam, which has a huge tribal population. Also, a newly formed state in South India, Telangana, also has special category status, and the same is being asked by its neighbor Andhra Pradesh now. So, the special category status is decided by the National Development Council, and the National Development Council is chaired by Prime Minister. So, when NDC has to decide the special category status, it does so on the basis of certain categories, and these categories together are called as Gadgil formula. So, basically, the Gadgil formula states that there are several impediments which act in the road of the development of the state. If such states have these impediments, then they should become the part of such special category status. What are the impediments? Now keep the map which we have discussed in the mind and let's see this. Hilly terrain regions such as Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, low population density or sizable share of tribal population such as Assam, Arunachal Pradesh. Also, if such states fall on strategic location or they are bordering states such as Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. Also, if these states lack in economic and infrastructure backwardness such as Telangana. Or if state is facing poor fiscal health. Now, there are several issues regarding the special category status. That is, first and foremost, it is unconstitutional. Now, various economists give this argument that Article 246, which lays down the value of fiscal federalism, envisages that center shall not be biased toward any particular state. But special category status, by its definition itself, makes central government has to show a little bit of biasness towards certain states. Also, as we saw that because, let's say, when we discuss about the centrally sponsored scheme, we saw that the share of the central devolution of fund increased immensely, correct? It has to pay up to 90% under the centrally sponsored scheme. So it obviously increases the fiscal burden on the center. For example, as per budget 2024, let's say that if the central government is spending 100 rupees in total, out of that 100 rupees, 28 rupees is directed towards funding the states under centrally sponsored schemes or providing under the devolution of the taxes. Also, such demand can have a domino effect because it can open a Pandora box where various states will start asking for the same status, which will ultimately increase the fiscal burden much more. Thus, the 14th Finance Commission removed the special category status for number of states except northeastern states and the states which fall under the hilly terrain. Also, the 14th Finance Commission recommended to increase the tax devolution to 42%. Before this, it used to be 32%. But now it has been increased to 42%, which means that whatever the tax which will be collected by the central government, now 42% share will be directed towards the states. As we see that in the budget 2024, the government is now trying to take the route of fiscal consolidation, as the government has set target to bring down its fiscal deficit to 4.5% by the year 2026. Thus, it is high time that we should rationalize such schemes, at the same time taking a balanced approach to ensure that needy states do get their due share. With these suggestions, we move forward to our next news, which is HAPS or High Altitude Pseudo Satellite Vehicle. Recently, NAL has successfully completed the first test of solar-powered HAPS. Now, this forms an important component of your GS3 paper under the theme of Science and Technology. Well, first let's see what was the test about. So, under the test, NAL conducted in the Chalakere testing range in the Chitradurga district of Karnataka. The specification of this high altitude pseudo satellite is that it was a 23 kg weighing prototype with 12 meter wide wingspans. Also, the flight duration was around 8.5 hours and it reached up to the altitude of 3 kilometers. This trial was conducted by NAL Bengaluru, which forms under the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research CSIR. Now let's inquire about what is this high altitude pseudo satellite after all. Well, first and foremost, it can fly up to the altitude of 18 to 20 kilometers, which is double the height of a commercial flight. Also, it runs on solar power. Now look at the images. Here we have an electric converter which converts the sunlight falling into electrical energy. Thus, it can not only sustain the flight time during the daylight, but also it has a battery storage with which it can also sustain the flight during the night period, making it a self-sufficient system. Now, in traditional satellites, we require a rocket technology to take it to that altitude or to those heights. But in the case of HAPS, it has very low cost because there is no requirement of any rockets. Thus, the cost of manufacturing as well as operating comes down significantly. Also, as per NACL, the industrial production will be ready by 2027. Now, by successfully conducting this test, India has joined the list of very few countries among the world such as China, South Korea and UK who are also innovating in this regard. NASA has a same mission called as Pathfinder, where it is developing such satellites. Now let's see what are the advantages of HAPS. Well, first and foremost, it can provide continuous surveillance of border areas, right? Let's say we are facing a standoff, let's say a Doklam standoff between India and China, correct? Now the problem with the normal satellite is that they follow an orbit. So they do provide continuous information about the region, but with a certain time lag. But because these HAPS, they are self-sustaining, they can stay at one particular height for a very long duration of time, thus providing us adequate and accurate data without any time lag, with which we can do the continuous surveillance of border areas. Also, it can help us in developing mobile communication networks, for example, developing satellite-based internet systems. Satellite-based internet systems such as Starlink. Also, it can help us in monitoring disaster-affected regions such as the coastal regions of Odisha and Bengal, which are often affected by extreme weather events such as tropical cyclones. Also, it can help us in conducting climate research. For example, we can use these satellites to deploy laser technology to identify the ozone depleting substance and eliminate them. Again, it can also be very helpful in the identification of mineral resources, such as finding lithium and cobalt in India, which are very critical for India's energy security and our Panch Amrit targets, with which we have taken an ambitious target of producing 50% of our energy through renewable sources. Thus, the HAPS technology can help us India in several fields, with which we move forward to our next news, which covers the Indian Ocean Conference. Now, why this is in the news is because our External Affairs Minister participated in the 7th Indian Ocean Conference, which is being conducted in Perth, Australia. Now, this forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the heading of Regional and Global Groupings. So, let's see first of all, what is Indian Ocean Conference? Well, Indian Ocean Conference is a flagship consultative forum for countries specifically in the regions around Indian Ocean. Now, this is organized annually by the Ministry of External Affairs of various countries in association with India Foundation. Now, what is India Foundation? India Foundation is a think tank not affiliated with the government, which deals with various political issues pertaining to India's interest. Also, the theme of 7th Indian Ocean Conference is towards a stable and sustainable Indian Ocean. Now, here we need to keep two things important in mind from the perspective of the prelims examination. First is that IOC was held in Singapore in 2016 for the first time. It is held annually, and this is the 7th session which is being conducted in Perth, Australia. Now keep this in mind that India has not hosted Indian Ocean Conference yet. Now moving forward to, there were several concerns which were raised by our External Affairs Minister at the platform of Indian Ocean Conference. So let's see what were they. First and foremost, our minister talked about the maritime traffic, piracy and terrorism, which is impacting the trade and communication in the region of Indian Ocean. For example, you guys might be aware about the attack of Houthi rebels on Indian ships in Red Sea region. which is significantly impacting India's commercial as well as strategic interest. At the same time, there is an emerging challenge in the face of a string of pearls policy of China. What is this string of pearls policy? Look at the map closely. China is creating commercial as well as military establishments circling India in the Indian Ocean region. Now keep this in mind that China does not have geographical access to Indian Ocean region. Now this Indian Ocean region is very strategic in the terms of trade and development for the future. Thus, China is trying to encircle India by creating commercial and militia establishments in these regions, which it called as pearls. What are those pearls? One is here, that is Gwadar port in Pakistan. The next is Hambantota port in Colombo. Also there is Chittagong in Bangladesh, Sitwe in Myanmar, and ultimately the Hainan Islands of China. By creating this, China is encircling India. Now keep this in mind that very recently a Chinese spy ship came and docked at Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, and it was only removed by various measures taken by Indian government, such as protest by the Indian embassies. Now all this constitute the violation of international laws under UN Clause 1982, because the secure sea line of communications are violated. It also compromises India's position as net security provider in the region. Now, why Indian Ocean is so important for our country? Well, first of all, we are not a landlocked country. We have a maritime boundary of more than 7,500 kilometers. At the same time, our trade in the region is extraordinary. For example, our 75% trade in the terms of value and 95% of the trade in terms of volume take place in Indian Ocean region. Thus, it is very important for us to ensure our strategic and commercial interest in the region, for which our government has taken various measures. Let's have a quick overlook on that. What are the steps taken by India to address these concerns? First and foremost, India is a member of various strategic organizations such as Indian Ocean Regional Association, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Also, India is part of Colombo Security Conclave, where the other members are Sri Lanka and Maldives. Also, India is part of a very strategic grouping called as Quad, which is formed by 4 countries including India, Australia, Japan and USA, where we need to make sure the secure line of communication and our trade interest not only in Indian Ocean region but its extension in Indo-Pacific region as well. Also, India has spearheaded BIMSTEC program where it has brought the countries surrounding the Bay of Bengal region to create collaborations. At the same time, India is also enhancing its economic ties in the Indian Ocean region. For example, India is part of Indo-Pacific Economic Framework led by USA. Also, India under its Look West policy has devised India, Middle East, Europe Commercial Corridor. Also, India has launched a trilateral highway under its Act East policy, where India is conducting a trilateral highway to increase its access to Southeast Asian nations. This highway crosses through India, Myanmar and ultimately Thailand. Thus, India is taking certain pragmatic steps to ensure its commercial and strategic interest in the Indian Ocean region. Now, we'll move forward to our last news for the day, which is a military exercise concluded recently called as SADA TANSEEQ. It literally translates into Forever Coordination. Now, this exercise was conducted between India and Saudi Arabia's army, which recently concluded in Rajasthan. Now, this exercise forms an important part of your prelims under the current affairs section. So, let's see a little bit in detail about what is this exercise and what all took place. So, first and foremost, the Indian Army and the Saudi Arabia's army land force, they joined together in a military drill which took place in Mahajan field firing ranges in Rajasthan. Now, this was a joint operation conducted by both the armies to enhance their skill in semi-desert terrains. What we will get from this exercise? Well, ultimately, with such exercises, India aims to increase its interoperability and create bonhomie between various troops. Now, such exercises are conducted under the Chapter 7 of the United Charter, which aims to bring countries into spheres of cooperation. Also, beside this exercise, India also conducts various other important military exercises which is important from the perspective of the prelims. Let's have a quick overlook at them. Well, we conduct Sampriti with Bangladesh, then Surya Kiran with Nepal, then we have hand in hand with our dear neighbor China. Also, we conduct Mitra Shakti with Sri Lanka. Then there are two important military drills which we conduct with United States of America, and they are Vajra Prahar and Yudh Abhyas. Beside this, we also conduct a military exercise Indra with Russia. Then we have Shakti with France, and finally Dharma Guardian with Japan. All these military exercises are very important from the perspective of the prelims examination. With this, we have reached to the end of our discussion. Now, do not forget to attempt the questions at the end of the video and test your knowledge. We will see you in a next interactive section very soon. Thank you.